12th General Assembly of the United Nations gets underway in New York. There are now 82 member countries. The American delegation, headed by Secretary of State Dulles. The delegation of the Sudan, led by Dr. Jakob Offman. Mr. Ford Cooper is leader of the Liberian mission. The Ghana delegation, led by Minister of Justice Ako-Adjei. In the opening debate, Mr. Dulles refers to Soviet intransigence in recent disarmament negotiations and speaks of dangers to peace in the Middle East. To the assembled delegates, Mr. Dulles reaffirms America's reliance on the United Nations.
The United Nations may not be able, by any material power that it can muster, to tranquilize the scene, but we can exert our influence. May we at least do that, and thereby once again serve the cause of peace, hope, and happiness.
That the United Nations remains the best hope of mankind is also the belief expressed by Ghana's chief delegate, Dr. Ako-Adjei.
We believe that through cooperation between the nations, we shall all work together to make the United Nations the fulfillment of the hopes of many millions of people throughout the world, to the end that in our time and for several generations to come, the peoples of the world may live together in peace and security, in harmony and prosperity.
In Nigeria, a railroad tragedy on the Lagos, Kano, and Guru line. About 50 persons are known to be dead. Many more are injured or missing. The accident occurred 20 miles from Ibadan. The railroad tracks had been weakened by heavy rains. Doctors and nurses, aided by soldiers, police, and civilian volunteers, work around the clock to extricate the victims from the wreckage and assist the survivors. It's one of the worst disasters in Africa's railroad history. In Liberia, a main concern of President Tubman's administration is bringing government to the people. Periodically, the president convenes an executive council in one of the remote districts away from the capital. Local chiefs and people come to attend the session. The purpose of the President's Council is to settle local disputes and investigate complaints against government officials or chiefs. Everyone has a chance to speak. It's popular government at the village level. In the Sudan, the United States Information Service maintains a public library in Khartoum. There are similar buildings in many cities of Africa, stocked with thousands of books and publications, a link of understanding between peoples of Africa and the United States. In Ethiopia, 11 officers and soldiers of the Imperial Bodyguard bid farewell to family and friends as they leave for Korea. They are going as replacement personnel for the Ethiopian unit serving with the United Nations forces. The fighting in Korea stopped 4 years ago, but still there is no formal peace treaty. soldiers of Ethiopia and other free nations are still on duty, guarding the integrity of a small country. At a ceremony in Washington, the new nation of Ghana, represented by its finance minister, K.A. Bedama, becomes a member of both the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. "64 governments are represented in these two worldwide financial organizations. At their annual Board of Directors meeting, the finance minister of Ghana joins the other delegates. Financial experts from every continent hear an address by the President of the United States.
It is important that we remember that what each of us decides in his own country affects the fortunes of the rest of us. Each country can render a great service to every other country by keeping its own economic house in order. The world is strong, and our sense of interdependence is keen. So too must be our sense of cooperation. That nations choose to act cooperatively through these great international organizations is ground for confidence that your decisions here and at home will be wise and sound.
A milestone in Nigeria's political evolution. Governor General Sir James Robertson and the newly installed All-Nigerian Council of Ministers come to pose for their official portrait following swearing-in ceremonies in Lagos, the capital. Alhaji Abubakar Tafewa Balewa assumes the new post of Premier of the Nigerian Federation, heading a 12-man federal cabinet. A few hours later, the ceremonial opening of the Federal House of Representatives draws a large crowd. National unity is the keynote. The people share the feeling of their leaders that British statesmanship has created tremendous goodwill in Nigeria. Independence will come gradually and constructively through steps like these. Here is the Minister of Labor, Chief Festus Okojie Ebo. There is a demonstration of the arrival of the new Prime Minister, who calls on all Nigerians to put aside tribal differences and unite in the cause of national independence. The Governor General arrives. Before entering the House of Representatives, he inspects and takes the salute of the Queen's own Nigerian regiment. The inaugural session of the Federal House is followed by a reception where the leaders meet informally. The Governor General, the new Prime Minister, and other personalities discuss the future course of Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa. In the town of Arnhem, Holland, people cherish the past. In our age of electricity and atomic energy, this old steam tram is a nostalgic reminder of days gone by. old engine was retired 30 years ago, but the townspeople just could not part with it, so it remained on the picturesque 6-mile run. Along the way, there's an encounter with some of the newer forms of transportation. That brings us to a novel transportation experiment in Germany, a single-track, high-speed train being tried out as a solution to the problems of big city traffic. The idea is, keep it off the ground where all the congestion is, and have even your stations up in the air. The inventor is Swedish industrialist Axel Wintergren, who presides at the preview. It may be a glimpse of the future. In Washington, Secretary of State Dulles presided as Don Carroll Bliss took the oath as American Ambassador to Ethiopia. Arriving in Addis Ababa a few weeks later, Ethiopian government and American embassy officials were at the airport to welcome the new ambassador and his wife. To those who greeted him, Mr. Bliss said he hoped to learn much in Ethiopia, to make many lasting friendships. There was military pageantry and diplomatic ceremonial when the new ambassador came to present his credentials to Emperor Haile Selassie. An ambassador has many responsibilities. The Ethiopian and United States governments have many projects in common. The ambassador soon visits every one of them. He wants to learn how he can help these joint programs. Here, he meets the teachers and pupils of a vocational school. Americans in Ethiopia look to their ambassador as the leader of their small community. The embassy is also a social center. At a ceremony in his office, Ambassador Bliss decorates Captain Johannes Messaker, former commander of the Ethiopian forces that fought for the United Nations in Korea. Ako-Adjei, a prominent painter in Addis Ababa, welcomes Ambassador and Mrs. Bliss to his studio. They had heard of his work and they wanted to meet him and see his paintings. That, too, is part of an ambassador's interests, a lively curiosity in the artistic and cultural life of the country to which he is accredited. Here is a huge canvas of the Queen of Sheba visiting King Solomon, a scene that recalls the legendary days of ancient Ethiopia. At their residence, the ambassador and his wife take lessons in the language of Ethiopia. Hours of leisure are few and welcome. Travel through the provinces reveals some of the beauty of Ethiopia. travel companions sometimes include Ethiopian government officials. Here, the trip is to Lake Tana for a visit to shore villages and an excursion to Sosinyo's castle, an opportunity to dwell on Ethiopia's past. It's part of an ambassador's education, seeing the towns and the villages, meeting the people of the different regions, studying their language, their art, their history. In the United States, big powerboats are made ready for the President's Cup, a race down the Potomac River in America's capital city. The event features 6 finalists in a 45-mile speed test. The Washington Monument can be seen in the background as the boats roar by at 100 miles per hour. They make quite a splash. At their apartment in New York, Christopher Okojie, Nigerian doctor of medicine, and his wife, who's a trained nurse, look over the photographs of the small hospital they founded 7 years ago in Irua, in the uplands of western Nigeria. With 48 beds, it's the only hospital for a vast region of 200,000 people. Twins were born to the Okojies a few weeks ago. Let's have a look at them. Dr. Okojie has been in the United States for the past year to study and to raise funds for his hospital. He keeps thinking of the people back home. Every morning he goes to one of New York's great hospitals. A graduate of Nigeria's School of Medicine, he is interested in the latest medical practices. Dr. Okojie often stops at the office of Dr. Howard Rusk, one of America's leaders in the development of hospital facilities for countries like Nigeria. It's always a crowded day at the hospital. Many hours are spent in the laboratory. Dr. Okojie analyzes X-ray photographs with an American doctor. He has many friends among his colleagues at the hospital. Here, they're getting ready for an operation. It may be an easy operation or a difficult one. In either case, a doctor, whether Nigerian or American, is always eager to learn. There is so much we still don't know about the human body. To Dr. Okojie, the patients at the hospital are like his own people back in Nigeria. They look forward to his reassuring visits. They will not easily forget him, this friendly doctor, when he returns to Nigeria. The day comes when a big ocean liner takes Dr. Okojie and his family home, back to Nigeria and to the service of his people. He has learned much while in the United States, and he has pledges of financial aid for his hospital.